Welcome to the free audiobook version of The Everyday Pain Guide, your go-to guide when pain first strikes. Hi, I'm Dr. Ya-Ling Liu, and the podcast is taking a little detour to make my new book available in an audio-friendly version for everyone out there. Each episode will feature a bite-sized snippet from the book, and together we'll work our way through as much of it as is possible in this format. What's exciting about this is that I'm reading parts of the book to you before it's even available on the shelves. Plus, unlike with a traditional audiobook, you can engage with the content and chat with me about what you hear. You get to ask questions and tell me what you think as each episode rolls out. So sit back and relax as I bring you today's installment of the second book in the Everyday Pain Guide series, Fix the Fire Damage. As I mentioned in the last episode, there's an entire section of this book that is so visual and hands-on that it's impossible for me to share it with you here in these podcast episodes. The section I'm talking about is the collection of body mechanics action plans, where readers can look up their pain location and find a complete set of steps to follow for different stages of healing, starting with the very earliest stage, which is when pain can make it seem like you shouldn't and can't do anything at all. But it's exactly at that point when many of us get it wrong because we're too annoyed or scared and worried, and we just don't know what to do. The steps and tools are laid out visually and very clearly in the book, divided into 7 different possible pain locations. In this episode, we're revisiting my patient stories, and we'll start by finding out how Ed uses the body mechanics action plans for managing his lower back and hip pain. Rest assured, the names of all patients in my stories have been altered to preserve confidentiality. Each clinical anecdote is a combination of some of the most common situations I see. And again, I want to remind you that the information, techniques, and suggestions discussed here are not intended as a substitute for your own individual medical care. Please consult your own healthcare professional before implementing any advice referenced here. How does Ed use the body mechanics action plan? Earlier, when we left Ed, the 42-year-old carpenter and father, he was coming to terms with the fact that his sudden back and hip pain from the night before didn't disappear during his sleep like he had hoped. He was reminded that the pain was still with him when he woke in the middle of the night while trying to turn over in bed. Getting up out of bed in the morning took even more negotiation and premeditation. He loosened up a bit in the shower, and then more as he moved around the house, getting ready for the day. Since then, however, he says he feels like he's hobbling around, unable to straighten easily, especially after sitting. Sitting in the car on the way to work feels uncomfortable, and when he goes over rough pavement, there are shocking reverberations of pain into his hip and low back. Standing for long periods of time, which he needs to do at work, makes him notice that his pain is more left-sided and goes into the buttock and thigh on that side. Ed is very frustrated by the intensity of this pain because of how much it's affecting his ability to just get through the day. He also doesn't have patience for all the modifications he is being forced to make. It's slowing down his work and just making him cranky. He's also worried that something is seriously wrong with him. After all, only a defective spine would be in this sort of pain from simply standing and reaching for a tube of toothpaste. He recalls decades of hard labor associated with his carpentry that never caused him any problems, and he feels he is a generally fit individual who stays reasonably active with bicycling and yoga, which means to him that he shouldn't be in pain right now. During Ed's treatment time with me, I walk him through some strategies to immediately decrease mechanical stress points while soothing the nervous system's response. These strategies are part of the first action phase, release, in the low back, hip pain action plan. After getting the ball rolling during treatment time, Ed is sent home with a few other tools in that body mechanics action plan, best matching his pain location. Initially, his pain started in the lower back with shooting pain into the buttock. Now, he feels a constant ache in the buttock along with his lower back pain. When he uses the Everyday Pain Guide at home for reminders of what to do, he thumbs through the pages looking for the shaded human body icon at the bottom of each page that best reflects his pain location, and that takes him right to the action plan titled Low Back/Hip. Because he is still having a great deal of trouble just getting comfortable at rest, it's important for Ed to take it slow and continue focusing on the first stage of healing using the release strategies daily. Ed spends a solid week implementing activities from this first action phase, starting with the lie down and support your low back approach, shown on the very first page of this action plan. He remembers me telling him it's okay to choose only the ones that feel easiest to fit into his busy day. For him, taking 2 to 3 minutes lying down in the evening with strategic support in the right places, as shown in the images, proves to be the most useful. On the weekend, when he has more time, he is able to start adding the hip rotator release against the wall with ice under the low back, and that continues to help him build on the relief he feels from the daily strategic lying down release. He notices that using the hip stretch helps him feel less pain in bed in the morning, and so he's motivated to do that more regularly before bed throughout the week as well. Eager to get out of pain, by the 6th day, Ed decides to try out some of the next steps outlined in Action Phase 2, Retrain. He finds that he can't be in the upward dog position without pain, so he skips that one. Then he tries the hamstring stretch, active version, which feels good in the moment, but while getting up from that position, he feels a sharp pain in his low back again. He returns to the release action phase and decides to stick with those gentle tools daily until he has a few consecutive days where the pain is not on his mind every hour of the day. When he finally returns to the second retrain action phase, he just focuses on one new activity at a time. After 3 to 5 days of patiently doing just that single newly added retrain activity each day, his pain is feeling more stable and maybe even a bit better. Now he starts to try 2 retrain activities per day. He continues to add retrain activities while still using the release positioning strategy in bed every night. When he doesn't do this, he notices more discomfort the following day while getting up in the morning and during his workday. 3 weeks after starting on the low back/hip pain action plan at home, he notices things are feeling quote-unquote normal again. He is still wary about bending and reaching, but not feeling his pain while doing so. That is how he knows he can start to investigate Action Phase 3, Reinforce. It's time for targeted strengthening and buffering against future strain. After flipping through the 10 different exercise options shown in the Reinforce action phase of his low back/hip pain action plan, Ed decides to pick the most fun-looking activities that he thinks will amuse his young son too, because it will increase his chances of doing them if he makes it a shared activity. He picks the monster walk and the dead bug. The former is to activate and build the outer hip area, and the latter one is to build on the core stability that was activated during the retrain action phase. Ed follows the suggestion to do both exercises 1 to 2 times per week for the first month, and then he intends to increase to 3 days per week going forward, as long as everything keeps feeling well. 5 times a week is just not sustainable for his schedule, and I've told him that's fine. Doing something is better than some illusion of perfect. After several weeks of being pain-free, it occurs to Ed randomly one day that when his low back pain and hip pain started, there was something a little out of the ordinary at work earlier that day, which he didn't think much of at the time. But now, after spending time walking himself through the release, retrain, and reinforce phases of his recovery, he realizes that this oddball incident may indeed have played a role in the start of his pain. He moves large pieces of carpentry all the time and is usually doing it with great planning and good form, as well as with help from others. But this day, there was something a coworker was trying to move, and Ed decided to help. It turns out this was a deceptively heavy piece of carpentry, as well as being awkwardly shaped, and at one point during the move, the piece slipped and would have fallen had it not been for a quick maneuver on Ed's part. He now remembers that this was quite a bit more of a physical effort than he'd planned on or prepared for, and he may have sacrificed good lifting technique for the sake of keeping the piece from falling. He didn't feel any sharp pain at the time, and so didn't think much of it. But now he sees how that may have been a significant mechanical strain. In thinking more about it, he admits he did feel something in his back when it happened, but was able to just shrug it off in the moment and get on with his other tasks. This is helpful insight and confirms that there was a legitimate cumulative mechanical stress to Ed's system before he felt the worst of the pain later that day. Reaching for the toothpaste tube really was just the very last drop in a bucket ready to overflow. Ed suddenly realizes that he had still been harboring some concern about his back and having trouble shaking the feeling that he might be falling apart because of how easily that pain started, with no apparent reason. When he finally remembers these details from earlier in the day of his pain onset, he can see that there was a very reasonable cause for it after all. His stress level drops instantly, and he can put his worry away and move on with confidence, now armed with the Everyday Pain Guide. To learn how to get your own copy of the book, join my publication on Substack called Better Pain Coping. That's how you'll be notified once the book is released. You can follow me there for free, but paid subscribers get access to bonus material and special pain coping resources. But just by being a podcast listener, you get a full year free by using this special code. Go to dryalingliu.substack.com/listener, and you'll see the annual plan has been slashed to 0. Click on that and complete the sign-up process, and you're in. Again, that's Dr. Ya-Ling Liu, and it's spelled dryalingliu.substack.com/listener. That's where you'll see me sharing personal videos to debrief about each episode, and it's where you'll get to see more of the photos, illustrations, and diagrams that make this book come alive. In the next episode, you'll hear Charlene's story about how she uses the body mechanics action plans to help with her stabbing mid-back and chest pain. See you there. This episode was an excerpt from The Everyday Pain Guide, your go-to guide when pain first strikes. Written and narrated by me, Dr. Ya-Ling Liu, with audio editing and production provided by Organized Sound Productions. Do you have questions or comments about today's episode? You can shoot me an email anytime at hello@stopeverydaypain.com. That's HELLO@stopeverydaypain.com. If you have friends or family members who you know are struggling with persistent, recurring aches and pains, tell them to check out the podcast while they're waiting for the book. To help me get this information to as many people who need it as possible, please consider leaving an honest review, but I'd also be super grateful for a simple like, follow, or share. Thank you for helping me put a stop to everyday pain.